Hello, my beautiful light beings. Welcome back to the Magic Exists podcast with Dani Margeaux. I have a very special guest today. Her name is Whitley Rose. She is a transpersonal therapist with a side of woo woo. Transpersonal means to transcend beyond the person. This style of therapy usually uses different modalities to work beyond the ego self. It focuses on the spiritual aspects of the human experience to help you transcend your inner self, explore higher states of consciousness, and multidimensional healing. She works with 3 layers of the human experience: the body, the mind, and the soul. This might look like hypnosis, somatic experiences, somatic exercises, meditation, dream work, astrology, and so much more. Welcome, Whitley.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored to be here.
Yay! And the first question I love to ask all my guests is, what is your strongest clair and how does that present in your life?
Yeah, so this has developed over the years. Like it's shifted and changed over the years. But right now, I think my most dominant is my clear cognizance. So my inner knowing. This is pretty much how I live my life to that inner tune, that inner voice. I'm always coming back to that inner knowing, that path of alignment. And so I think for me in this current moment, that self trust, that self knowing is what has been the most powerful.
I love that. And that's my strongest clair too. So I totally resonate with that. And it's so beautiful that you said that self trust, because I really think you have to develop that self trust to be able to hear that inner voice and that power and that gift of the claircognizance more fully. And it's really funny because I was just at the gym and I was like doing some reps and I was so tired, but it's in that class and you have to like keep going. You can't just like walk out of a class. So I was like, instead of doing full push ups, I started going on my knees and my guides were like, just do 2 more, just do 2 more. And it's like old me would have been, kind of making myself feel bad about maybe not doing the full rep, how everyone else is doing. But me, I was like, okay, my guides said I can do 2 more. I trust myself. I trust them. And I just deeply know this, I can do it. And then it was like all of a sudden I was strong enough to do 2 more push-ups. And I was like, okay, this is so cool.
Yes, you're supported on like multiple frequencies.
Yeah. So I want to talk about transpersonal therapy. So what is that and how can that help someone?
Yeah, so transpersonal therapy is a lineage of therapy that works with like alternative experiences. So I think you already shared earlier, transpersonal means to transcend beyond the person. So it really works with these experiences where we go beyond self, beyond our mind. And it is such a powerful style of therapy. I have clients that come to me all of the time that have tried traditional talk therapy or like CBT therapy, which is more of the cognitive processing. And there's definitely a place for that. Like we need to figure out our thought patterns and our thought processes. And that really only integrates it so far. And so that's usually when clients come to me because it's more so of like, we're going to take you, like you already know your experience, but now we need to integrate it into your body and then integrate it into your soul and your spiritual experience. And if you ever heard of the book The Body Keeps the Score,
I've read it. It's
yes.
so good.
Yes. So we know that the body holds emotions, traumas, and all kinds of things. And so that's just one lens we also have to move through with our mental health. And then I also love the piece of the spirituality and soul level because it's not just integrating it in this reality, this body, but integrating our mental health and our connection to wellness beyond, this existence.
That's so cool. And it's so funny because you hear, like, ever since I was a kid, I've always heard, like, mind, body, spirit, this, like, term. Yet in, like, Western society, it's like we typically only address like the physical pains or ailments in the physical body. And it's so interesting. It feels so, it's like a juxtaposition almost. Like we know that you need to address the mind, the body, and the spirit because that is one whole person. And if you are only addressing a third of that, then how can you really be, so fully whole? And that's such a beautiful thing, and it's something I've been actually trying to step into, which is that multidimensional self. And I think on your bio you wrote something about like let's heal through all the dimensions,
Yes.
which I absolutely love.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important because not only do we store trauma in our bodies in this life, but we also can store trauma in our soul through past lives and other things. And it comes up a lot, in the therapeutic setting for me as well with clients where they will have these like past life flashbacks or experiences that actually are affecting like the way they show up. I think the one of the most popular examples I see in society right now is with witches. So a lot of women in our realm, connect to that idea of being prosecuted in a past life for being a witch. And we see that trauma come through in this lifetime where we may have a fear of using our voice or using our magic or using herbal remedies to heal and all of these types of medicine woman workings. And that's just a great example of how we can carry over some of these wounds from past lives into the way that we show up in our society today. So it's so important to address it as well on a soul level and on a multi-dimensional level and frequency.
Yeah, and that's such a good point because it's like that energy, that karma that might have, fused with our soul or created with our soul during that lifetime in which we felt like we couldn't speak our truth and like really show our gifts, so that we kind of started becoming like scared to being seen, scared to really be in our authenticity. And it manifests through energy, through our soul in this lifetime. And so there is such a valuable and like honestly really important tool, past life healing. And I know like I've said this on here before, but I had a really rigorous past life healing session. Like it was like maybe 6 to 8 months. I went in like every other day, and I like just went in and I was like healing, healing, healing. And so it's hard to say like where I would be without that, because of so much karma and so much I was able to release and transform through that like 6 to 8 months.
Yeah, yeah, it's so important. It really is. And like rewriting those soul contracts, and releasing them is a way that we can start to integrate all of the layers, in this realm. And I see it show up for me too with this past life and this life that I'm still working on, where I shared this on my Instagram before, but I was actually a lady in waiting to Queen Mary of Scots. And I didn't know this until I lived in Scotland. And I actually was living at a house that had a view of the castle that she grew up in when she was little from my bedroom window. And I started getting all of these downloads and all of these things that came through. And I realized in turn that was why I was scared to step into my power in this life. It was a piece of it. It was because I had been so accustomed to staying small and staying quiet and obedient and just doing that to kind of survive. And so that's part of the workings I'm doing right now, is really rewriting that of like embodying my inner queen, because I never had the chance to do that before.
And I love that you were in Scotland and that's where the energy was in that needed to be healed, and you felt called to go there. And I know now that you're in Hawaii, and so you felt called to go to Hawaii. And I
Yes.
but I think it's so cool that you were able to do that. And from a transpersonal like lens, what would you say or how would you describe a soul contract to someone who might not know what that is?
A soul's contract is something that we come through in the earth realm with, and it is just an agreement of a theme that we may have to move through in this earthy realm in lifetime. And that's the easiest way I like to think about it. It's just kind of like, what life lessons are you going to have while you're here?
Yeah, and I think it's so empowering because now I also feel like this lifetime I'm opening my voice, and I definitely had a witch wound, and I know there's a lot of, spiritual women in this same kind of experience, and how beautiful is it that we are able to step out of our comfort zone, step out of the unknown, and do things that are kind of uncomfortable, but we trust ourselves enough to do it. And it's like, it's that for me is like the definition of empowerment. Like, we have this contract with our soul that we decided before this reincarnation that it was going to be a little hard to really speak our truth and to be heard and to be seen for our gifts. And even moving into the space of like, I didn't get, like my master's or anything in therapy. I kind of went through like the Reiki and the energy healing, and to be in this space after a whole decade in, a different career, it's so empowering to do something different, follow my curiosity, and really step into that energy of authenticity and vulnerability and feel safe within that space.
Yes, I love that. I love that so much. And that's too part of like our soul's journey as well of we will have to do the difficult work to kind of transcend and awaken and have these spiritual awakenings. So usually when we move through a soul's contract, which you can have many, many, and some we may not even move through in this earth life, but you can have so many. And so it really is just that's like part of the workings, it's unlearning and relearning and writing, unwriting and rewriting and these kinds of experiences. But the other side of that is that spiritual awakening that we have.
Yeah, so beautiful. I just went to see a medium like maybe a week or two ago, and she was like, "Oh, you're in your own gestation period before, even motherhood and all that." And I know you're pregnant right
Yes.
now. And so I'm curious, like from the multidimensional space, the transpersonal space, how can someone maybe know that they have a contract with their wound or children?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think the first step is really just connecting to your body, really starting to connect to these spaces. And unfortunately, as women in our society, we're not taught a lot about our womb. There really is a lack of education in terms of that. And I just even think back to like getting my menstrual cycle and how I had no idea what was happening, no idea what was going on. I also thought for the longest time that you could get pregnant like anytime you had sex unprotected. These are all of the things that the system kind of uses to keep us small and to keep us like obedient in that. And so I think just really connecting back to these kinds of things first, connecting back to your body, starting to notice these places in your body or these places you're feeling called or feeling energy is a great place to start. And with women, it is a lot of the times we have wounds in our womb. And we know that too, just from like if you even feel disconnected, from that or not in tune with like your cycles or what phase you're in when you're on your cycle. And these are all things that you can start to tune into to like rework these parts and these pieces.
If there's someone like who has no idea where to start and they're hearing
Yeah.
this word like womb help or womb magic or womb awakening,
Yeah.
what is like one thing someone can do to tap more into that energy?
Yes. Yeah. So connecting to your womb is super crucial, especially as women right now in society. And it is, scary to be a woman in society right now. So having that connection to your womb space is so important. And the first thing you can really do is just start to tune in, start talking to your womb. I realized this when I did a yoni gazing practice that my therapist recommended years and years ago, that the talk to my womb and my sacred space was so negative, and it was not pretty to listen to. It wasn't supportive. There was no relationship there. It was kind of just like this space was here to serve other people, or there was shame in there. And so the first thing I think you can do is just start to talk to it, tune into it, connect to that womb space. And I did a meditation where I just was like, I love you. And it still even feels hard to connect to that because of all of the layers past and present that it's not honored to like connect to your womb in a loving way, you know. And I think that's also the beauty of motherhood, is it kind of mirrors that to you. It forces you to love that space. So like luckily for me, you know, it's been easy to tune into that, but there's ways you can tune in without that as well. And I just had this conversation with a friend too, where we were talking about how people treat pregnant women so nicely and how I treat my body so much nicer that I'm pregnant. And we were like, why is that? Like, why are we not doing that when we're not? You know, why are we not walking around like treating our womb like this, or just being so aware of it, putting our hand there all the time? Like, I'm constantly rubbing my belly. And why am I not doing that and connecting to that space when I'm not pregnant? And so it's just such a beautiful mirror of like, and a reminder of connecting to that space and why it's so important. And then the other thing that came up when you were asking this question too is just even one, connecting to like the spirit of your womb. But I think it's really helpful to also to connect to the spirits of our womb space, like spirit babies and all of these other pieces that, you know, we can get into. And so I think one, connecting with your physical body is super crucial, and tuning in, talking, and then calling on your womb spirit, your divine feminine, all of those parts, and then seeing what other spirits exist out there too that can be encompassed in this space.
Oh my gosh, so many things. So, first one, I love that perspective, like being able to treat our bodies like as beautiful divine altars of co-creation. You know, you have this beautiful soul growing in your tummy, and I'm sure you're connecting to it, and you're like, you know, helping support it not just physically but energetically as well. The first time I ever connected to my wound was in Peru, and I did a meditation where the girl Rita, who was hosting the space, like told us to go inward and imagine like an animal in there that was like protecting your womb space. And I think mine was like a spider, and there was like cobwebs everywhere. And I was like, oh my goodness, this is so sad. And that was like the first realization and awakening of like, wow, like this is part of my body, this is part of like how, yeah, I should treat it with love and devotion and all these beautiful things. And so, and it's kind of interesting because this is just slightly off topic, but like people don't tell you, like when you were saying, people don't tell you that like you can not get pregnant every time you have sex. And I was born and raised Catholic. And so in the church, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. And so there's a lot of shame around that energy. And now that I'm engaged, suddenly my parents are like, when are you going to have a baby? And it's so interesting that in this, like, in this church, the mentality is like, it's like a light switch. Like, you're just going to do it this way, no questions asked. And then suddenly there's a portal that you don't have, no one's going to prepare you for. And suddenly you're okay to move through this portal. And so I really think addressing the mind, body, spirit is like really where you can access that transition, that healing, that love, and understand really like what your body wants and needs, and being able to connect to your soul babies. And I'm curious, have you connected? I'm sure, but like, have you gotten any like sweet messages from your soul baby?
Yes, yes, I have. Yeah, and it actually reminded me of where I first connected to the soul was when we were doing a meditation together. You were guiding me through one of the dragon transmissions. And I remember I saw this dragon, and it was guarding two eggs that were in this nest. And the like I connected to both of them. And since then I've had this beautiful spirit connection that has, you know, continued on but yes, I talk to my baby all of the time. I feel like we have so many conversations and it will kick back at me. We're constantly talking in the other realms. And even there's another spirit there too, that may come earth realm, may not, but I also talk to that one as well. And so it's really fun, to connect to those spaces. And it's also super crucial to tune in. That's why I love that you were sharing with the spider and the cobweb, because it's so important to check in with these things, because when I was with you and we journeyed there, they were both like, it's not time. So
Oh,
if I didn't honor that space and allowed it to come through, then it wouldn't have been at, the right time, the right place of alignment. And that's the same for any type of womb work too. Oftentimes, because of our society, it does require a lot of healing, clearing, and a lot of things to make space for, these creations to really start to come through.
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that was like my quantum masterclass or something like
Yes.
early last year, and that was so beautiful. And I really do think like we have the power to do it on our own, but it's so beautiful when we have other light workers to support us and hold that space for you to do that activation and connect with your soul babies, and that's so beautiful. And I saw something that you posted on Instagram, and if you're open to sharing, that you are not actually going to see any, I think, or checkups or do checkups with the baby, like in the Western medicine world, and mainly just
Yeah.
do like personal ones. If you don't mind, like talking a little bit about your intention behind it.
Yeah, yeah. So this actually was part of the conversation I had with the spirit baby as well. And it was very clear from the moment that I conceived that we together wanted to do this pregnancy differently. So my first pregnancy was rooted a lot in fear. And I think I shared a little bit on my post about that. I was really worried about miscarrying, and I was really in a lot of fear. I had a lot of bleeding until I actually till way into my third trimester. So we were always just like, "Are you okay? Like, what's going on?" We were always getting checkups, and it was in a lot of fear. When I tuned into that too, it was rooted in a lot of grief from losing my sister, and even grief from like past lives. Like I have a lot of connection to the shadow work and death cycles, and a lot of old things that I carry that have to do with that kind of fear and space. And so that pregnancy was a lot of navigating through that. They say with pregnancy, it's your mirror to the inner work you need to do in that moment. And mine was with death. I had this huge fear of death, this baby dying, me dying, something happening. And so I knew when I connected to this spirit baby that we were going to do it differently. That was not our mirror this time. That was not the lens we wanted. And so when I tuned in this pregnancy, it was really all about trust. And so we decided to go with a wild pregnancy, which means we're not doing any ultrasounds, we're not doing any testing, we're not doing really anything. This is like rooted in that free birth realm, and it's like all about that sovereign primal pregnancy and birth experience. And so it really has called a lot in of that trust, because we don't really know anything. I don't know anything at all besides the spirit that I'm talking to. We don't know what anything looks like in there. We don't know, like, yeah, really anything. It's about just really surrendering to the unknown, and trusting myself, trusting the spirit, and trusting my body. And so it's been so powerful, because I will get to play with that. I'll notice when I have like a symptom in my brain and my body goes to like the worst case scenario, and I've been sitting with it this time, and then it goes away, and I'm like, oh, I'm fine. That was literally, nothing. That was something I just had created, and in my own reality. And so yeah, it's been such a beautiful journey of trusting, connecting, and just really honoring myself, and rewriting too lineage of women in my family that have kind of been in that space too.
That's so beautiful. You are so powerful and inspirational. And like exactly what you're saying, like I'm not a mother yet, but like when there's something wrong or we feel like something's wrong, we're scared, and then we like go to the doctor to validate, that we're okay. But it's really taking that power back and trusting within ourselves that we are okay no matter like what's happening. And it's so beautiful. How is your partner taking that?
Yeah, so he was so down actually. He was really down with it. He is like a very open soul as well. And he honestly was like, usually it's me that's worrying more, which is so funny. So, yeah, he's handling it so well. Like, he actually reassures me when I get a little in my head or things. He'll reassure me. It's like, come back to my truth, check in. So we have that really beautiful connection. He's really grounding, in that way.
That's so beautiful. Do you have a sense if it's a girl or a boy?
Yes, and I get in my head about it too. Yeah. So actually, when I connected to the two spirits that on our journey, it was a boy and a girl. And so I think I know which one it is this time, but we'll see. We both are kind of leaning one way. And we also thought with our first, it was a girl and he was a boy. So we'll see kind of how it plays out. And I'm actually trying to rewrite that as well because it it was hard to discern between my intuition and what was like my brain and wanting and like those kinds of things. And so in my head, I'm like, oh, I can't, we still want a girl. And I'm like, oh, it can't be a girl because I want it to be a girl or, whatever it is. So I've been actually working on that too. If like you can have what you want, you can have good things, you can have it in the order that you want it. And that's okay. So I'm trying to lean into that trust as well of like, trust you can have anything that you desire. And why are you trying to convince yourself that you can't?
I love, love, love that you just said that because it's interesting because when we are in the physical, right, we're like, we have these desires, but they're third dimensional desires. There's no co creation with the universe, unless it's happening up higher that you're unconscious of, right? But then when you surpass that and you enter the realm of like that trust and that surrender and that frequency, which is multidimensional, right? It's like aligning to your soul's essence. You ironically get, I guess, like your contract of what's meant to happen, but you realize you're so in alignment that you have control of it. And ironically, it's what you wanted anyways. It's this
Right.
like such a beautiful, beautiful concept.
Yeah, yeah, it really is. And it really just requires, like what you said, that trust and surrender, and like leaning into the fact of like, you can't have it all, And when you have any type of trauma or trauma brain, like I do, it jumps to worst case scenario. And so that's why it's so important to have mind, body, and soul because, the mind, you can only work it so far. The body, of course, you can cultivate trust and embodiment. And that soul lens is really where it shifts to like you can have good things. You can have these connections. You can trust and surrender and lean into the unknown, the unseen.
Yes, I want to talk about that a little bit because this is a concept that I just think is so valuable and people don't talk about a lot, but that our mind, that you were saying the trauma mind or, the narratives, the ego self, whatever you want to like call like the mental space in which you have a lot of overthinking thoughts. And that's your conscious space, right? Like literally, and you're only consciously working out of 5% of your habits, behaviors, thoughts, choices. So 95% of how you move through reality is actually beyond the conscious mind. It's unconscious, whether it be mind, body, spirit. It's beyond what you are actually aware of. And so tuning into these other energies and these other concepts helps really align you to your true self. And this one instance came up where we were at like my friend's house, and one of my friend's friends came up to my partner and I, and she was like, I don't want to evict my tenants. They haven't been paying for months, but I feel bad like that they don't have money, and like they usually pay a lump sum after a month or 2 3 months, and then they'll just do it again. And right away my partner was like, no, the story you're creating in your mind doesn't exist. They aren't paying you, they don't respect you, evict them. He's like, what's this whole story you're putting, right? And to like allow them to not pay you so you can't pay your mortgage. Like, it was just so fun and cool to hear him, because he's a reflector and very non-emotional. So he's like, this is black and white, what are you doing?
Yeah, yeah, it really shows you like how, the mind, they are just stories, and they do get stored in our body, which our body is a powerful tool to connect to our intuition, but it's also biased as well, depending on what we've been through, because our nervous system is connected to our body and how we move. And so that is again why, yeah, it's like so important to connect beyond that as well. And we need all of them, like you just said, because we do have to pay bills, we do have to have social security numbers, and it reminds me of the quote of Ram Dass, who, he's amazing. He has a book that's called Walking Each Other Home. It's really awesome. But yeah, so he has this quote that kind of talks about the ego, and how when you think of a horse-drawn carriage, you think of, you have the driver, and then you have like the passenger and the carriage piece. And he says how the driver is our ego, and the passenger is our inner Buddha nature, our soul, our beyond self, and how you can't really get anywhere without the other. Because, who's going to drive the carriage down the path if you're just in the back and you don't know how to do it? But also, who is going to influence and show up in this way unless you connect to that more soul level? And so that's what it reminds me of, because it's like, yes, we need our egos actually, because we have to file taxes, we have to put roofs over our heads, we have to have food to eat, and that involves money in the system. And obviously there are some ways without it, but for most of us it involves these more systematic, like black and white pieces. And we also don't have to be the driver. It doesn't have to just be one way. Like, they're friends, they're working together. We all want to get to the same castle on the other side. So it's just a befriending and a listening, and then choosing intentionally which one you want to listen to, because at moments you might have to listen to one or the other, and neither is wrong or right.
You got such beautiful points there. And I'm going to have to listen to that book or read that book, because I love how they say that. And I love that you said that, like, neither of them is wrong. They just need to work together, because it's not about like, oh, the ego and the narratives that and the judgment that oftentimes come with those narratives. It's not that they're bad. It's about learning how to offer that part of you love and accepting and valid. Like, it's all valid. It's happening to you. You are creating your own reality. But how can you connect that driver and the person in the carriage more fluidly? Because oftentimes I think there is probably no connection with a lot of people who are going through reality these days. And the first time I saw that, or I read that concept, was in the beginning of my spiritual awakening journey. And I read the Power of Now with Eckhart Tolle,
Yeah.
and he identifies this thought as separate from his identity, which it feels kind
Mm-hmm.
of similar. Like, the carriage is that thought that he's having, or the driver, and then
Yes.
the self, the true self, is like the person in the carriage. And he's like, oh, this thought kept coming up, but that's not me. And oftentimes people identify with like, oh, I'm an anxious person. It's like, no, you have anxiety. It might show up maybe 80% of your time or your life because of the conditioning you have, but you're not actually an anxious person. You're actually like a
Mm-hmm.
beautiful soul person or soul version of you. And it's like, how do we spread that to more people? How can we share that? Like, all the things that you've had in your life, like, for me, it was like I was annoying for being too hyper or loud, or And so it was always like, I'm annoying. I'm an annoying person. And that was something I had to transmute. And it's like, no, I'm not actually. If you perceive me that way, that's your projection, right? And so it's been a beautiful journey, but that I love all those books, how there's like that connection that they have there, that the identity, the ego versus like who we really are on a soul level, which is
Yeah,
unconditional love.
exactly. Yeah, it really is. It really is. And that's like how we can navigate through the multi dimensions, because like we need all of those parts and all of those pieces.
Well, is there anything that you're working on now? I know you just released I think it's called the Whisper Coven. Can you
The
tell us a little
cosmic
bit?
coven.
Yes, Cosmic Coven. I apologize.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that and all the fun things you're working on right now.
Yeah, so I have a new membership. It's called the Cosmic Coven, and it is really where we do all things woo woo. It's like a place for witches to go and learn and read with each other, and just an epic space of community. And yeah, one of the first journeys we're doing is actually a group Akashic record journey. So that will be really fun. And yeah, so currently right now too, I am offering Akashic record readings, and then still working in the transpersonal realm as well. And so I love bridging mental health and some of these practices. So oftentimes, even with therapy clients, we'll look at the Akashic records, or we'll look at birth charts and kind of, process and talk about some different things. And so I'm always, connected into the therapeutic realm as well. And I actually haven't shared this yet either, but I am currently training to be a certified equine therapist too here in Hawaii. So I'm really excited about that as well. So that's bridging a whole nother layer of, the earth realm and the animal realm into healing.
What is that?
Yeah, so that's therapy with horses.
That's so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So it's been so powerful and such a cool experience, and it kind of even works with what we're saying, the layers of the mind, body, and soul, because you have to pay attention to so many different pieces, being able to read like body language, and yeah, connecting to those kinds of frequencies.
I think it's so cool because you are able to help people with so many different modalities. Like, I don't have an affinity for astrology. Like, for me, every time I try to learn it, it's just like it falls apart. Like, for me, it's the Akashic Records, you know? And so it's really helpful. Like, you're able to support people, and even tarot, I know you do, like hypnosis, all the things, and you're able to like really tailor your sessions to the individual that's in front of you, the whole mind, body, and spirit that's in front of you.
Yeah.
I think it's so beautiful. And so where can our followers find you?
Yeah, so you can find me on Instagram at Whitley Rose, or on my website, which is also whichleyrose.com.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for your time and sharing this wonderful wisdom.
Yeah, thank you. Again, I'm so honored to be here. You're such a beautiful light in my life, and I just you're so inspiring. Can't wait to see, all of the magic that continues to unfold for you and everyone that's a part of your universe.
Thank you so much, and I will post all where everyone can find you in the show notes after.
Okay, thank you.
Bye.